My name is Jennifer Perkins, and this is the Creative Queso Podcast. Each week, we chat about the business of being creative and the creativity behind running a business. This week, since Mom 2.0 is here in Austin, and Alt Summit just wrapped up in Palm Springs, I am chatting with someone extra special in relation to both conferences, Gabrielle Blair of Design Mom. But wait, what? What if you're not a mom? Are you going to like this episode of the podcast? Sit down, grab a bowl of queso, and get ready to be inspired no matter what line of work you're in or if you got kids or not. Gabby Blair is a mother of 6. Yes, I said 6. Sure, parenting is what got her started on this trajectory of examining the intersection of motherhood through the eyes of a designer, but her sight and empire are so much more. Gabby is a founder of Alt Summit, a New York Times best-selling author, and is credited with discovering Joanna Gaines. Plus, her long-running website, Design Mom, has been named one of Time Magazine's Websites of the Year. I can't wait for you to listen in as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of blogging, why the term mommy blogger makes us both twitch a little bit, and a few highlights from the 2019 Alt Summit. All right. Thank you, Gabby, for joining me today. We were just talking about how you had a super late flight, so I extra appreciate you jumping on a call with me.
I'm glad to be here. I really am glad to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not only just a late flight, but you must be like extra exhausted because Alt just wrapped up and now you're here in Austin for Mom 2.0. It's like whirlwind travel time.
Well, I love Mom 2.0. I don't know if you know, but I helped plan the very first one. I was kind of one of the hosts of the very first one when we thought it was just going to be a one-off. And I just wouldn't miss it. Although I have actually missed one. We were living in France and it was in California.
That's a good reason.
It was just too far. I couldn't get there, but for a 3-day conference, but I've never missed another one and I really, really love it.
I didn't know that. I was kind of like, doing the stalker thing the host should do and like deep diving into all your history. And I didn't know that you and Laura had run or started Curtsy together.
Yeah, we did. So we started Curtsy and then Curtsy. So Laura had, met Carrie and said, hey, I think we want to do this little conference. And, Laura was like, I'm just Laura and didn't feel like she could do it. Although she could have, but anyway, felt like she couldn't. And so it was like, let's have Curtsy do it. We're like, yeah, let's have Curtsy do it. So we did it and then, and loved it. And then when she's like, hey, I think we're going to keep going, Curtsy, which was me, Laura Mays, and Laurie Smithwick, we had to go, okay, but Curtsy can't do it because we have like a million other things happening. So Laura's like, no problem. This will be like me and Carrie. We're like, that's actually perfect. But of course, we still feel very connected. And for years, when I would come to Mom 2.0, people would like thank me. They thought it was one of the founders or like one of the, and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't actually do anything to help put this on, but I'm here and I'm excited to be here. And yeah.
Whatever, you just like walk around, flip your hair, like, yeah, it was totally
you are welcome.
Me.
Yeah,
exactly. No problem. So did not Design Mom, but did Austin or Mom 2.0 start before Alt did?
Yeah, the year before. So,
okay.
So that was certainly, and of course, had I been super involved with Mom 2, I probably wouldn't have had the bandwidth to do Alt Summit. But I had gone to, we'd been like, Laura and Lori and I had all met at, we met online virtually and started a business without actually meeting in person. And then we met in person at Blog Her. It was, I want to say the second one, but I don't know if that's true. It was one of the early ones and we loved it, had so much fun. And that's part of the inspiration for Laura starting Mom 2.0 was just wanting to do that. She thought she was just doing something local. She originally thought she was just doing something Houston based, and really Texas based. But then she realized were coming from all over the country. People, and especially I think women want to connect with these people they met online. And this was early days of the internet and people really wanted to connect. Anyway, so I am a design blogger, but I'm also a mom blogger. I'm kind of in these two worlds. And at Blog Her, it was definitely mom focused. And at Mom 2.0, obviously mom focused. And I was talking with my sister, who's also a design blogger, and my sister-in-law, also a design blogger, and they didn't have kids yet. They weren't in the mom world. And we were talking about conferences and talking about how a lot of the design blogs we read, like Apartment Therapy or Design Sponge or Oh Joy, they didn't come to Mom 2.0. They didn't come to blog her. And it was, kind of this different world. And that's why I ended up starting Alt Summit. It was like, oh, I want to bring together these design focused blogs that I read. And anyway, and that's what I did. So, and obviously the world has changed a ton. And some like Oh Joy spoke at Mom 2.0 last year. She now has 2 kids, like things change. And so the overlap is definitely different. And there's a ton of people that come to Mom 2.0 that have also come to Alt Summit and vice versa. So it's fun that we can feed each other, help with these conferences.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of crossover. When I was, like I said, when I was cyber stalking you this morning before we chatted, I saw that you had been to blog her. And it's funny because I was their DIY editor for
What?
a couple of years. Yeah, over at Blog
Ah,
Her before, like She Knows and
yeah,
all of
yeah,
that big
sure.
transitioning. But I never made it out to one of the blogger conferences. But I'd always heard about it. So
Well, I haven't been in years, but I can tell you that those first ones really were something special just to have. I don't know, these are just the early internet all the possibility. It was before Facebook and before Instagram, and it was a little, it was definitely a different world. And
mhm.
it felt like something big was happening. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm from those prehistoric days. I used to have a
You're
website
like,
like
I'm
on.
OG.
Oh yeah, I had Naughty Secretary Club was on Blogger. I think I even had like GeoCities before that. So
Blogspot.com, baby.
exactly. I go back that far. So bringing it back
Yeah.
to blogging,
Yeah.
let's talk about kind of your home base, which is Design Mom to
Mhm.
start.
Mhm.
So did you like jump into Design Mom right after baby number 1 or
It's
was it after
actually
baby number
baby
5?
number 5. Baby
5.
number
Oh, I took a
5. You
guess.
guessed it. Yeah. So I started in 2006, 2 months after baby number 5. And I'd been working in New York as an art director and loved it. And already had 3 kids by the time I started working there, and then had 2 while I was working there. Anyway, so I was looking for something I could do at home. It was just maternity leave, and I was like, okay, I need something creative. I'd had enough babies by then that I kind of knew my brain goes nuts. I get postpartum depression, if I'm not like doing something creative. But I also was like, I have 5 kids, so let's like not, let's not be crazy here. What can I do that's like low pressure, but that's creative, but that isn't necessarily like client focused, where it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to take meetings and, get out of my pajamas. And I've been reading blogs at my desk on breaks, for I want to say at least a year, maybe even longer. And most of them were like personal essay blogs, and I loved them. Oh my goodness. It was, again, early days of the internet. They weren't very visual. It was just these essays, and they were so good. And then my sister turned me on to the design blogs, as I just mentioned. And I was like, oh, I could actually do that, because at the time, design blogs were not heavily written. They were like, here's a lamp. It's really cute. Like that was a blog post.
Mhm.
Like it was equivalent, almost like a pin, like it was
Just like a
really
single
just,
thing.
it was like, yeah, an image with like, a sentence. And then there might be like, and here's my cat, whatever. Like it was, it might be personal as well. So, but I was like, oh, I could do that, because like the writing intimidated me so much. I was an art director. I come from the graphic design side, and I just hadn't really had to write. And so I thought, I'm going to start a design blog. And so I did. And I called it Design Mom from the beginning. It was designmom.blogspot.com, good old blogger. And my thinking was, I was 31 and I was having my 5th baby, and all my New York peers, they were just getting married. Like they were, they were just thinking about, they were maybe pregnant with their first. And here I was with my 5th. That made me this instant pro, even though I really, of course, no one knows anything about parenting, but I was just this pro. And then there was also this big design boom. Like I remember Martha Stewart came out with a magazine called Blueprint that was kind of aimed at a younger audience, and the
I
whole
remember it.
You remember? And that
Oh yeah, like Ready Made about that time.
yes. And the whole tagline was like, design your life. You know, it was about, there was really this design evolution where, you know, Target started doing its collaborations. It really hadn't done a ton of design collaborations, but it started, and everyone was all of a sudden like, yeah, we all care about design. And so I was not only getting questions as like a young mom from my peers, but I was also getting questions about like, okay, I don't want to just know how to find baby shoes. I want to know how to find the cool baby shoes. So they wanted my opinion, not just as a mother, but as a designer. And so I was already getting those kind of questions again at work, you know, before the blog. This was just like my life at this point. And so I'm like, oh, I can kind of, that will be my blog. I'll kind of answer these kind of questions or share the things I find. And so that's what it was from the beginning. And I said that it was at the intersection of design and parenting, and I've kind of kept it there. But although it has changed quite a bit, and now I'm like really heavy on writing. I mean, any blog these days needs to be because of just the changes with social media. But really, that's how it started, and it took off right away. I got really lucky with timing and the topics I was doing. You know, Madonna had just had her first baby when I did. You know, so there was this baby boom in Hollywood going on over the maybe the 5 or 6 years previous to when I started. It just was like a really good time to talk about babies and a really good time to talk about design. And I was talking about both, and I was like a legit expert on both. You know, I mean, I'd actually gone to school for design. I actually had kids, and yeah, so I got really lucky on timing, and it took off, and it was great.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
So, how old is your youngest?
8 years old.
Okay, so you still have, I've got an 8-year-old too, so you still got some young ones. I was kind of, you know,
Yeah.
with this conference being in town, I was
Yeah.
curious if you're still as interested. I mean, you never become like not a parent or not a mom, but are you still as interested in parenting via a designer's perspective as when you like first started out, or are you getting kind of like, are
I
you
think,
over it or not over
well,
it,
no,
but
I
you know
see.
what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. And I would say, actually, yes, I would say, again, the nature of the content has changed in that a lot of it's really long form now versus like,
Mhm.
here's a lamp, you know, the example
When
I gave at the
it's
beginning.
funny, it kinda went around in a circle because there used to be,
Uh-huh.
like, you know, like Heather Armstrong or somebody who would write these, like,
Mm-hmm.
diatribes, and then it went to, like, quickie little, like, "Your 10
Mm-hmm.
favorite whatevers," and now we're, like, back, like,
We're
to
back to the
long
longer
ones.
form. And for those of us who really hadn't done longer form, that has definitely been a change, because anything shorter form now is just going to go on social. But even there, like my posts that do best on Instagram is where you like write a diatribe. You know, like they like people
Mhm.
are looking for content, and they're looking for all sorts of content. But if you can give them meaningful content, they care about that. And as far as the topics I cover, I would say it's still a lot of what I did at the beginning, though, adapted. So there might be a post talking about, okay, what's the reality of having older kids now? Like, so I do have, you know, I have elementary, I have junior high, I have high school, and I have college now. And one of my college kids is applying for interns for the summer internships. She wants to go to New York. So she's like applying at New York Times. She's applying at Martha Stewart. You know, she's applying everywhere, and little companies you haven't heard of as well in New York. And the reality of that and what that's like. And I'm talking about like, hey, this is how we handle keeping her resume updated. And we've been doing this since she was in, you know, like ninth grade on a Google Doc. And so, you know, I'm still talking about parenting and how to help, and how independent do you want your kids to be, and how much do you want to be involved. And then at the same
Mhm.
time, I'm also talking about design stuff. Like I have a post that will go live, I think, this week, that's about compression socks, because my readership is getting older, you know, right?
Oh,
And
no,
they're
are we
like,
there?
so this
Like,
is like, here are stylish compression socks. You didn't even know there were such a thing, you know. Anyway, so it's all, you know. And then I'll still have like a young mom that does a home tour, and she's just got, you know, like her brand new baby, and so she's talking about the realities of sleepless nights. And we still have this, you know, so my readership is it's been interesting because my original readers have stayed with me, but then we've got all these new younger readers over the years.
mhm.
And a lot of them will email me, and they're like, I'm like their big sister, their aunt, or someone that can like give them the advice they need as they just get into motherhood. So we still cover family vacations and what that's like. And we'll have someone talking about what it's, traveling with young kids on a plane, even though I'm kind of past that terrifying part of, flying with young kids. A lot of my readers aren't. So we still kind of cover
Mhm.
it all.
So you're just kind of going with the flow and changing your own content that you're writing, changing with your kids' ages.
I do that. I adapt my writing to my own kids' ages. But I also adapt it to kind of what the readers want. I hear from my readers quite a bit. I get emails, I get comments. They tell me what they want to talk about. The
Mhm.
other interesting, and then of course I've adapted with social media as I've moved certain types of content off of the blog into other areas. And then there's, the whole world has become really political since 2016 and even before that. And that's reflected in the blog as well. I mean, I was always covering, politics and parenting, they overlap like crazy. Anyone that's a lot of the policies out there are being made in light of parents who are caring about their kids. And we're talking about education, we're talking about gun control, all that kind of stuff is often filtered through a parenting lens. And so I've always covered it in some ways, but then I've covered it a lot more because people want to talk about it. And if you're not talking about it, they might not, you're going to get called out for being sort of like insincere, like why are we still talking about compression socks? Like we gotta, there's real stuff happening
You
in the
gotta
world,
mix it up.
like there were, like there's all these bombings in Sri Lanka over the weekend, like what's going on. So I kind of cover it all. And the nice thing is with that original tag where I said, this is the intersection of design and parenting, that can cover literally everything because again, parenting can cover so much and design can cover so much. All those sorts of like technology and problem solving, all of that falls under design. And then just life. I mean, there's really nothing that's going to come up that you're not going to be able to adapt to concerns for your kids. So
Yeah.
so it's allowed me to cover everything. And there are some readers that get turned off for sure. And they'll let me know, but it's, all of a sudden another 20 readers will jump in and say, please ignore that criticism. Don't stop writing about a broad range of topics. This is why I come here, and they'll say, hey, if you're looking for design only, head over to Pinterest.
Mhm. Well, you can't be everything to everybody. I mean,
You can't. You
you just
can't.
can't. You're not gonna make everybody happy.
No, I've certainly learned that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's gonna get mad. Yeah, and I was thinking as you were talking about, your daughter who's applying for internships, and you helping her with her resume. I'm sure, like, right now, that's such a relevant topic with all the, like, collegey scandals, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how to
Mm-hmm.
help your child and,
Without actually buying their way into USC, like, yeah, totally.
Exactly. All of those things, and that brought me to another point I was gonna ask later, but I think it kinda comes up now in correlation with that is, I know one of your sisters does, Oh Happy Day, right?
Yes. Yes. That's my sister Jordan. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys both obviously, were raised with this entrepreneurial spirit. Like, I can remember being a little kid and my dad being like, "You don't wanna work to put money in other people's pockets. Like, you wanna be an entrepreneur," like, literally being a little kid. Do you feel like you're kind of raising your children in that way? I mean, obviously, you're setting an example, like, "Look at these companies and these things that I've
Right.
built." Like, are
That's
you
a
consciously doing that
That's
or
such a great question. I don't think anyone has ever asked me that before. I would say I definitely grew up in an entrepreneurial household like you, but I don't remember my parents ever specifically talking about like, don't work for the man or like, it wasn't like that. It was just like, they were always starting new stuff, but it's like my dad was a teacher as well. So some steadiness in there. I think so we definitely come by it naturally, and all my siblings are constantly starting businesses. That's like a universal thing for all of us. There's 8 of us. um, and then my own kids, I think they're more aware of the flexible schedule that we have and how
Mhm.
that has changed our life, like the move to France for a few years, that we really there's always a parent available because we both work at home. So if they need to get picked up or there's something going on at the school or whatever, even if one of us had to work out of town, like for example, I missed my kids. 2 of them played the Star Spangled Banner at the Oakland A's game last night, and I
Oh,
was on a
fun.
plane to very awesome. I was on a plane to Austin, and I've heard them do it before. They did it last year, so it's not like you know, I'm trying to not be hard on myself, but my husband for sure can be there. Like one of us is around. So I think they noticed that. And I don't know if they've put it in terms of starting their own business. But they are, they are fairly independent. So that I'm particularly thinking of the older two, who are college age, and Ralph already has tons of video clients. He shoots and edits video and does a ton of it, and in addition to his coursework. And I imagine he always will. I mean, it's just like once you sort of know, like, oh, I can make money and I have control of it, and I can, like get it down when I want to and take as many clients as I want to. That feels really good. And then Maud, I would like her to definitely I would like both of them to have a sort of office environment experience, so they really see what that's like. And there's something cool about having coworkers and an office culture, and I definitely want them to know that. But I will not be surprised if she ends up writing and doing that professionally and doing that independently. So yeah, it will not surprise me at all if all my kids end up having sort of self-employment as their career,
Is their go-to. Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, like, just like you, my dad was a teacher. He was a college professor, but it's like he always was like having some sort of like side hustle, I guess we would call it now. So I guess like even without like ingraining that in your children, when they see you do that, they're just like, my son, my 8-year-old, he's always like, you get to stay at home and watch Netflix and go to Target all day. And I'm like, I know it looks like that, but that's not really what I'm doing.
That is for sure a conversation. Like even just the other day, my husband was trying to explain to my kids, like, when you see mom on her laptop, she's not playing Fortnite. She's like working.
Exactly. I'm not sitting here doing Candy Crush, people.
Right. Her screen time is very different than your screen time. So because there is that, like, saying, hey, you got to get off your screens while I'm sitting there with a laptop on my lap, like, so that's modern parenting, I guess.
Exactly. Well, we were kind of talking about your website covers like all kinds of topics, like you were saying, not just children, but here kind of on the heels of Mom 2.0, we're both about to go later today. Do you have any suggestions for creators of content for children? Like, let's say their kids are way past the like scented Play-Doh and sensory bins. Like, how can they maybe pivot into something a little more relevant or, juicy, like you were talking about, like, politics or life things, without alienating their original core audience of parents? But it's, maybe they're just not that interested in like little kid stuff anymore.
Right.
Any ideas?
Yeah, I think that's such a relevant question. I would, this is what I know. People want good content. And I think we all know that because we open Netflix and they're like, okay, what's a new show? What's new? Like, what's good? What's something? Or what's the next episode of whatever it is we're watching? And when there's nothing there that feels new or fresh to you, it's irritating. It's like, like we're all looking for stuff. And not just in TV, we're looking for, that's why we're on Twitter. That's why we're on Instagram. It's really, we're looking for content. And if you can provide good content, and good content takes time and it's hard to do, don't fool yourself. But people will want to read it, and your original readers, they're humans too, and they want good content too. And in my experience, they'll come along for the ride, the bulk of them. There'll be some that go, oh, I don't like change, I don't want this. They might be resistant. Most of those will come around as well. And then there'll be a few that just don't. But again, you can't please everyone. And it's so depressing to think about making content that you don't care about anymore. So
Exactly.
Certainly don't do that. I mean, like, that's just gonna, like, readers will be able to tell that you are unhappy and they will not want to read. So I guess you're choosing between the possibility of alienating people or definitely alienating people by writing about stuff you don't care about anymore. There are other ways though. When I'm on a panel at Mom 2.0 with Mommy Poppins. Mommy Poppins is a New York based blog that I've known. I started my blog in New York, so I had known her from the very beginning. And she really talks about, everything happening for kids in New York City. And then she's also has expanded to other cities as well. And you can, hers was never super personal, right? It wasn't about her kids. And so and so she can do this forever because it's more about her passion is about running this business. And she has tons of contributors from all over the country, and they're all working on this together, and they might be in different life phases than she is. It does feel different if that's the kind of business you're building versus the kind that I've built that's very personal. So as far as the blog goes. So you have to think about that. The other thing is, as an entrepreneur, you have your thing, but you probably also have a side hustle. Like that's just kind of how we do things, how a lot of entrepreneurs do things. So in my case, I've got Design Mom, but I also have Alt Summit. And Alt Summit isn't about me. It's not as personal as Design Mom is. I'm not like, holding forth about very personal topics. And so that can be a place for me to say, oh, let's put more energy there and less on Design Mom if I need to. And I don't think that's an uncommon thing for entrepreneurs to feel like, oh, I can shift my energies here. It's not necessarily a pivot, but it's like sort of a shift of energy from project A to project B, if that's what makes sense for you now. So I would also just say, if you don't have a side hustle to your original side hustle, be open to it. See what's out there, see what's happening, and see if it's time to
too many side hustles.
Right. And see if you can use side hustle A to launch side hustle B, which I've certainly used Design Mom for over the years. When Alt Summit was first growing, I really used it to sell tickets. I used it to really talk about Alt Summit and promote it. And I don't think I could have done it without Design Mom.
No, that's a great, I mean, that's kind of, I guess, technically what I'm doing with Creative Queso, because I've always done creative content design, and that's where people know me from DIY Network or HGTV. And it's like, as much as I love making crafts, I was like, but I love talking to business owners too. And I was just like, well, I'll start this other side hustle. So that's a good pearl of wisdom. You don't have to throw the bathwater out with the baby.
No,
or the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah,
you can certainly use what you've got and say, okay, how do I build on this? Or you take a look at like a Joy, who's been doing design blogging for a long time, 12 years, longer, I'm sure. And but then she'll add on. She's getting tired of design posts, so that's okay. She's adding on now products, and she'll add on. Here's a store, and here's like you can also sort of say, okay, I've still got that original stuff, but maybe I spend less time on that and more time on these new features of my original blog. Anyway.
So a slow and steady change wins the race.
For sure.
I'm curious, since talking about like parenting blogs and being here for
Mom 2.0.
Mom 2.0. I always say Mom 2.0, but I guess I've never actually talked to anyone about it.
Sometimes I say 2.0. So I'm at this point, I'll usually say Mom 2. I don't know. I've been anyway. But yeah,
the mom conference. But I'm curious. As I was writing this, I'm curious how you feel about the term mommy blogger. I have I have mixed feelings about it. It's not like mommy's a bad word or blogger's a bad word, but it's like when I decided to start calling myself a creative content designer instead of a crafter.
Right.
It had a more professional ring. How do you?
Well, I feel like mommy blogger always sounds less professional to me. There's something about the word mommy that's, the only people that say mommy are very young children. It's not it's not a thing that adult people say. So I've always felt like it was trying to belittle us and take us not very seriously, which there's still people that don't take us seriously. That's a thing. It's, you're, like if you're a mother, you might be revered as a mother, but you're not taken seriously as a business person. So I've never loved the term. I haven't gotten offended if someone calls me a mommy blogger, but it also just, again, I feel like it's always an attempt to belittle or to not take us seriously, or put us in a category that, again, that's just like, oh, here you go. But I go to this, I've been to this conference for many years. I've been to Alt Summit for many years. These are serious business women. They're there. They might look fabulous. They might have a baby on their hip. They might, look like they've just come out of the salon. So you're like, oh, that's all they care about is looking fabulous and being a hot mom or whatever. Baloney. Don't let any of that fool you. They are there making huge deals. They're walking away from these conferences signed contracts for brands. They are big businesswomen, and they and just because they care about things that women like, maybe they care about wellness or they care about beauty products or whatever it might be. Those are billion-dollar categories. These are huge categories for people to shop and innovate in. And the idea that we shouldn't take them seriously because women happen to like them is just so ridiculous and offensive. So I know very much. I mean, our very first reviews at Alt Summit, I know Mom 2 has experienced the same thing, is people coming and assuming this is going to be fluffy, and then actually observing what's happening, going to the classes, talking to the women and going, oh, these are powerful women. And they are, again, running companies, they're starting things, they're investing, they're, they're here learning intense business skills, and they're taking risks, they're launching companies, and take them seriously. And don't, like the fact that they can do all that and look fabulous, that's awesome. That's not a negative thing. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. I'm glad you say that because I too was just like I saw an article in the news today, the Austin News, and they referred to it as a mommy blogger thing, and I was just it made me twitch. I was like, I feel like that's kind of degrading a little bit. Like
It's dated
I
as
I am
well, you know?
yeah, I mean I am a mommy and I am a blogger, but somehow that term is just kind of like looking down the nose like, isn't
Right.
that cute that you have that little thing you do during nap time? It's like, no, some of these
Exactly.
ladies are making serious bank and running huge businesses
And they
and
have tons of
product lines and
employees, and yeah, and they've done collaborations with Target now, and they've done, they have really big companies, and yes, I guess technically they still have a blog, but like the blog is like a very small part of their overall universe. And you're like, yeah, every company has a blog. Do you call them bloggers? Like, is that their main
mhm.
identifier? Because the world has changed, and where like Alt Summit originally started as a conference for design bloggers, that's no longer true. I mean, that's not even like that's not a blogging is not the focus anymore. Now people have made their whole career on Instagram, or they've made their whole career on Pinterest, or they have launched something, they've started on Pinterest and realized like, oh, I know what I really want to launch. And then they start a related company that helps you promote your stuff on Pinterest, or, whatever it might be. And so these conferences, and I know this is true for Mom too, as well as Alt Summit, they're not just attracting bloggers anymore. And sure, a lot of people here probably have blogs. That's great. They might have had them for a dozen years. They might, or they might be new, but that to say that everyone at the conference is a mommy blogger is ridiculous. That's just not even close to true.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've found that too, and it's just like, I mean, take a look at the companies that are all there.
Right.
Like
Right.
if that's they're not thinking they know they're not thinking of it that way. And I was like, is Martha Stewart a mommy blogger? She's a
Right.
mom. She's a blogger.
Right.
Like you wouldn't call her that.
Right. And they're not here. Those companies, if they were just trying to meet consumers, they would go somewhere else. They are trying to meet influencers and business people that can take their product to the masses. They're trying to meet powerful people that can
Mhm.
tell about their product to a large, to have an audience. So think of that these brands have paid money to come here to meet these people. And they want to meet
Yeah.
these people not because there's 1,000 people here. That's a ton of people, but that's not worth it. If they sold 1,000 units of something, that's not worth their time to come here. They're here because they're going to sell millions of units, because all of these women, I mean, if they can convince these women, these powerful women that have these huge audiences, that their product is worthy, then these women are going to tell their audiences, hey, I discovered this thing. This is awesome. You would love this. And now they sell
Mhm.
millions of units. So it's this really, really powerful group of people. And then women in general, we control 80% of household spending in the United States. I mean, we spend the money, we have control of the money, as far as as far as household spending goes. So to be able to connect with people that can, whose opinions count to
And who hold the
consumers,
purse strings in
and
the house,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a big deal. And so to not take it seriously it's really ridiculous. And the whole mommy blogger thing that started, it's been a long time, but that whole it started as a degrading term, and it still feels that way to me. But
Okay, good.
at the same time, most people who use it are certainly not trying, just know the term, aren't necessarily even trying to degrade. They just like, oh, we're talking about mommy blogger. They think it's just a term. So
Mhm.
I don't know that people are trying to cause offense anymore when they use the term, although some are. Anytime someone calls me out
Yeah.
as a mommy blogger on Twitter, I know it's always some dude trying to, be a jerk. But I read the Austin article, and I certainly don't think they were trying to be offensive with the term.
Oh, no, I
Um,
mean, I think it's like, do you know who Jenny Hart is? She does Sublime Stitching.
yes. Hmm.
Yeah, Jenny's like an old friend of mine. We were in this like group called the Austin Craft Mafia together. And I remember when she first started, every article would be like, this is not your grandmother's embroidery. Like every single article, we would like laugh, be like, here's another one about not your grandmother's embroidery. So I think it's just a catchphrase. I mean, I don't think anybody is trying to hurt anybody's feelings. And if people love and want to embrace that term, go for it. I just, for me, was like, it's like when people are like, oh, you're a crafter. And I'm like, well, sort of.
Yeah, but you're
I mean,
picturing
I
when you're, what is it? When you say crafter to me, what is it you're picturing? Because I'm probably not that, like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So definitely. And you just have to think like my sister Jordan, my sister-in-law Liz, who runs Say Yes, Joy, who we've mentioned, none of them had kids when they started blogging. They, so the idea that, okay, so they were bloggers, but now they're mommy bloggers. You're like, well, no, that's not like, they're still, like, why, anyway, why are they suddenly in this other category?
I guess technically, but not really.
I mean, yeah.
All right. Well, I digress.
Moving on.
Yeah, I know, that keep me up at night and make me twitch. But all right. So I'm sure you can't do an interview without talking about the Joanna Gaines connection.
Oh my goodness.
And the legend that she was discovered by HGTV on Design Mom. But what I want to know is, how did she get on your radar in the first place? Because I'm from Austin, or I live in Austin, but I'm from Dallas. And, before Fixer Upper, like, Waco was a place I stopped to, like, go to the bathroom and maybe hit a couple of antique malls. So I'm curious how, like, you found her in the first place.
Sure. Well, it's not a dramatic story at all. And honestly, my only associations with Waco were David Koresh, for goodness sake. Like, I didn't know anything. Right?
Exactly. I remember that. Yeah.
So basically what happened is, I want to say around 2010, I started home tours. Now, I had occasionally done like a home tour of someone. That was a thing on design blogs. It still is a thing on design blogs. But in 2010, I started living with kids. It was going to be like home tours, but like through parenting eyes. And it was going to be this weekly thing. And so I did. I started it, and people really loved it. And it's a terrific series. It's still going on. Every Tuesday you can find one, and it's people love it because it's not, yes, you see pretty pictures of houses, but the interview gets so good. It's like people really, these women and occasionally a man, talking pretty deeply about like their parenting struggles and what works and what doesn't, and their concerns, and like really trying to be vulnerable. I mean, the best ones are always very vulnerable. And it's interesting too, because the houses where at first we were focused on like, oh, these will be like designy houses. That's not actually what people wanted. They wanted a range. So yes, they love a beautiful home, but they also want to see like regular homes, that just look like, I'm not necessarily a designer, but here's the reality of my home. People want a peek into other people's lives, especially if it feels like an honest peek. Anyway, so I started this series, and I got an email from someone saying, hey, I think you should reach out to this designer, Joanna Gaines. She's just starting out. She's got this company. Her house is really beautiful. And so reached out. And I would say of the home tours we've done, which hundreds and hundreds and hundreds now, 98% have reached out to us. At the bottom of every home tour, there's a like, hey, do you want to do a home tour? Email us here, give it, and basically, inviting people to reach out. But in this case, we said, hey, we reached out to her to just say, hey, we were told you have an awesome house. Do you want to do a home tour? And she was game. So it was really that simple. And of course, we didn't think anything of it. We'd shown lots of beautiful homes, and before we'd reached out to her, and didn't know this was going to be super special. And it is a beautiful home, but she did a great job. She did a great job with her tour. You can still find it on Design Mom. Do a search for Joanna Gaines. It'll come right up. And so the tour was beautiful. The photos were beautiful. And she was, when I talk about lucky timing on my part, that I knew, that I could talk about design and parenting, when my peers were just getting into it, she really had her pulse on this, like this look. And I don't even know how she defines her look, but she had her pulse on this look that was so universally appealing to mainstream America, and you can see it in that first tour. You're like, yep, this is just this, it's this clean look, and these dark floors, and the shiplap, and the whole, like she just knew this look from the beginning. And this combination of like fresh, clean white backdrops with also antiques and things that look old and have texture. And she got it. She just nailed it. And so I was not surprised at all. I get an email, I don't know, not even a year later, saying, hey, because I didn't know anyone had reached out to her, but saying, hey, I'm actually doing an HGTV show because they saw this home tour. And so I did a second post featuring her show, like, hey, you guys, one of the home tours is now going to have a show. Do you think it'll take off? This is so exciting. Like we had no idea it was going to become a thing. We hadn't seen it. I never heard of.
And now they're going to have their own network.
I
No more
know,
DIY
right?
network. Hello,
And so
Magnolia Network.
So the readers were excited. They had remembered her tour and said, oh, that's great. Happy for someone getting some success in their life. And again, all this is happening while I still live in France. And then, within a year of that, everyone's talking about Fixer Upper. It's just become this phenomenon. And, and I get back to the States and she's on the cover of People magazine. Like, just it just changed so fast for her. And it was fun because I never actually met her until this Alt Summit. I mean, we've emailed all these years, but we hadn't met in person. And it really was fun to think of how fast her life had changed and how swiftly it changed. And while she's still raising her family and still trying to stay focused on her home, I know she didn't grow up there, but what's become her hometown of Waco, and how hard it is to be this famous, right? While also being normal. Anyway, she really does a great job of it, and I'm just delighted. And she's so gracious. Early on, she did an interview with Baylor's magazine, and Laura Mays went to Baylor, so she had gotten the magazine and said, "Hey, Joanna Gaines talked about being discovered on Design Mom in this interview," and then she did the same thing as we got on stage at Mom 2.0 for the keynote. At Alt Summit for the keynote. What she started with was that she'd been discovered on Design Mom, and she's always been really gracious about that and acknowledging that. And she certainly does not need to. That's really, you can tell she's a lovely person that she does that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of their success. They seem like delightful people. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I do want to be their friends, even if I don't like shiplap. Like, I want to be their friends.
Totally.
Yeah, I saw that you guys met at Alt, which we talked about a little bit. Your conference. So you've had some like amazing keynotes besides.
We have.
Besides Joanna. So tell me. And the listeners, like I know about Alt, obviously, because I'm in this world. But if nobody's ever heard of Alt, give us kind of the elevator pitch about it.
You bet. So it's really the premier conference for creative entrepreneurs. And I say creative entrepreneurs because I'm trying to encapsulate it was design bloggers and it was Instagrammers and Pinterest people. And now it's Etsy shop owners and people are launching products. It definitely has changed over the years, but everyone has a creative kind of design focus typically and wants to learn entrepreneurial skills because whatever it is they're doing, they're launching, whether it's a blog or a product or a magazine or whatever it might be, they need all these same skills. Whatever it is you want to create, you need to know how to promote it. You need to know manufacturing. You need to know, how to do an email list. All these kinds of things are just the skills you need at this point. If you're going to create or do anything, you need to know how to run an Instagram account, all that kind of stuff. So we teach all of those kind of very business skill things. We also teach creative skill things. So you can go take tons of photography classes, flat lay classes. For those who don't know what flat lays are, it's like those shots you see from above where it's like a table surface and you see this beautiful coffee cup and then you see, maybe there's a phone there. Like there's a whole little setup that's just beautiful and has little accessories or a cloth napkin or whatever it might be.
Perfectly arranged vignettes.
Yeah, these little vignettes. So those are called flat lays, and you can do them about any kind of product. And but they're a thing that people have to create now. So we'll have classes like that. We'll have classes on modeling because you might find yourself in front of the camera when you weren't expecting to. We have classes on how to make videos, how to edit them, how to make videos from your phone. We'll get into very specific things. Anyway, so we have those kinds of skills. We also then cover, these are really creative people. So we'll have like tons of crafting classes where you can just kind of go, yes, you might be learning a new skill, but it's more about just like getting a mental break. It's like a lot of heavy mental work while you're there. And so you can come over now and just make some jewelry or do a block print dish towel or whatever it might be. We had some sticker stuff last time. There's just tons of that kind of stuff as well. And then you also are there for inspiration. So there's I would say that, the biggest amount of classes are these, I want to call them workshops that are focused on business skills. And that can be marketing, it can be branding, it could be anything that has to do with kind of business skills, even stuff for like accounting and, all that kind of stuff. And then there's, again, these creative classes and arts and crafts kind of demos. And then there's the inspiration classes. So those will be our keynotes or these kind of TED style talks where you are hearing the stories of successful people and people that have, made mistakes, but then recovered, or talking about how they figured out how to pivot, or when they knew that it was time to quit their day job, or whatever it might be. So we bring a lot of that in as well, because there are so many good stories out there, and people want to hear them, and they really help. So we cover all that kind of stuff. I think people really come for the business classes most of all. I mean, that's what's worth making the investment, because they know they're going to make money back, right? It's going to teach them how to pitch brands. It'll teach them how to make a deck where they can, show what their prices are. It'll teach them how to price their work. So they come for that because it's this business. They can kind of write this off as they can for sure write it off as a business expense, because they really are there learning business skills. But, so again, that's probably the main excuse for coming. At the same time, they really love this other stuff. And in addition to all these types of classes, there's parties and gifts, and it's beautiful. And, we had different headshots being, that were free that you could get throughout the week. And so you really, the headshots alone are worth the price of the ticket, so there's all these lovely little perks of being there as well. And then the people you meet is the other huge factor. And this has been true since the beginning of the internet. And I know I've even mentioned this already, but people that meet online and connect online want to then meet in person. Like, we want to have that real connection. And at Alt Summit, it is so fun, because throughout the year we get emails from attendees that say, I met so-and-so at the conference and we just launched this thing. So yeah, there was two women that were speaking this year that at last year they connected with the Henson Company, because the CEO of the Henson Company is in Jim Henson, is in Muppets. They had come to Alt Summit, the CEO, and they'd connected, they'd gone to dinner, and now they have a show. And
that's amazing.
And that's not an unusual story. I mean, like, this is just that's just awesome. People come, they connect with people, or they find a business partner and they launch a company together, whatever it might be. That's real. So it's this opportunity to, you don't know who you're going to meet, and you don't know who you're going to connect with. But if you show up and participate and just kind of are open, you're going to meet who you need to meet to take your next step.
Yeah, I mean, the networking alone, just like for meeting friends and companies, and any excuse to go to the Parker game.
Right.
Yeah, I interviewed Danielle Kurtz from Kid Made Modern, and she used to be with Land of Nod. And she was telling me about like the moo-moos and the all the caftans and all that. And I was just like, what?
Yeah, there was like a whole party that Alaska Airlines threw that was just a caftans and cocktails. I mean, that was just like one. Not even everyone got to go to that. There's just like a million things happening at the same time, and it's all awesome. It's all really, really cool. So it's it also feels like it's the cool kids, and it's teaching people like, here's what's cool. Here's the cool stuff coming up. It's also this sort of preview of like, here's what's on people's minds right now. And anyway, it's fun, but it's also big business. It's big, serious contracts, and these are powerful women, as I said, and even things like Pinterest really launched at Alt Summit. I don't know if you know that story. So you have Ben Silverman. He came to the first Alt Summit, just kind of checking it out. Ben Silverman's the founder of Pinterest, and kind of showing his app carefully to people, kind of quietly. He's kind of a quiet guy. And the next year he came and he spoke on a panel. In fact, he spoke on a panel with Laura Mays, not even about anything, particularly groundbreaking necessarily. It was just kind of a basic panel. And then the next year he's the keynote, because Pinterest has like taken off, and he's very sweet about it and says, he says Alt Summit is the soil that the tree of Pinterest grew out of, because I don't know how he even heard about Alt Summit, but here's your visual crowd, right? These were, especially the first year, these were all design bloggers. These were the exact target for for Pinterest, as far as like visual people, but they were cool too. And Pinterest has gone through waves, right? Like, there's a lot of people,
it used to be like invite only. I remember those
invite
days.
only for sure. Those were definitely the Alt Summit days. But then and then it did become universal. And for a while I got on there, I was like, I don't even like this. This isn't cool anymore. Like the content's like feels too, I don't know. I don't know what I want to say. Like just like too commonplace or something. It doesn't feel inspiring to me. It's like, okay, yeah, more recipes with like a bad font on the title, or you know what I mean? It was like, yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
And then and they figured it out. And I feel like now I can see what I want to see. Now I can see the inspiring things. And if you want the recipes, you can get those too. But it felt cool from the beginning because all these cool people from Alt Summit were the ones creating the content. And had it started with another group of people that maybe weren't as cool, it would have had a totally different vibe. And I think that's very, very real. And I think Pinterest has figured that out. In fact, they did their own conference last summer where they invited all these influencers that make cool content, they make really beautiful, inspiring content to come, because they know that that's ultimately like what makes their site look really good,
Yeah, I'm supposed to interview. Do you know Ebony? I can't think of her last name off the top of my head. Yeah. I'm going to talk with her, I think, next week about.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, I've met her before. I actually met her at a Blogger party in Austin at South by Southwest, bringing it full circle. Yeah, so I'm going to talk to her like next week about like the IPO and Pinterest, and yeah, she's awesome.
So. Well, speaking of South by, I really took a lot of inspiration from South by for this year's Alt Summit, and by that I mean like we were trying to figure out how to grow, because like last year we were also in Palm Springs. Was our second year in Palm Springs, and we had room for 700 people at the Saguaro, and we sold those tickets in like an hour, and then we had 3,500 people on the waiting list. And I was like, what do we do? Like it just feels like I don't want to make it like an exclusive thing. That's not my style. That is not like I want it to be inclusive. But how can you do that when you sell out in 2 minutes, right? Like it's just felt like but I don't feel like I could just move Alt Summit to any old location. If I move it to just like in Salt Lake City, we used to be at a big old hotel called the Grand America, and it's great, and it's beautiful, and you get all the perks of a nice big hotel, tons of great service and tons of space. But our social shares went up by 30% when we moved to Palm Springs, because it was just so much more visual than trying to like take pictures in a ballroom. You know what I mean? Like, so like the hotel we started using in Palm Springs, the Saguaro, is like a rainbow hotel, and you cannot resist taking pictures. And there are other really cool hotels around, but once they get big, they're all kind of the same, and I love a good luxury hotel. So I'm not trying to talk down on anything, but like a Ritz-Carlton in this city versus a Ritz-Carlton in the other city, all the classes in the rooms all look the same. It's all these ballrooms, and with air walls that come across. And I get it. I've done it. Like we did that for many years. So like I totally get it. And again, there's tons of conveniences, and they can handle the shipping so much better. And there's a lot of great things about using a big hotel. But those social shares, you really lose out on them, because again, in Palm Springs was all in natural light. We could do a lot of outdoors, and the sponsors could really have fun with it in a way that it's harder to do in a ballroom. So anyway, knowing our crowd was visual, this was important to us. But we were stuck. Like, okay, we can't get any bigger at the Saguaro. Now what do we do? Where do we go? What do we do? Or do we just keep it limited? And then I remembered South by, and I'd been to South by Southwest, I don't know, for many years, but it had been a while. And I remembered that like, oh yeah, I'd checked in at the convention center. I'd picked up my badge, and then never went to a single class at the convention center. Like I was like at classes all over town. Every meeting space in town, in my memory, had classes. If you're a hotel with a meeting space, you had classes there.
I mean, anywhere, coffee shop, there's something going on.
Right, totally. And so it was like, oh, well, what if I use multiple locations? Obviously, we're not even a fraction of the size of South by Southwest, but what if I take some of those principles and I say we have multiple locations, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, I can use all the cool hotels in Palm Springs. I can use the Ace, which is amazing. I can use the Parker. I can keep it the Saguaro, and get social shares at all those places, because you want to take pictures at all those very cool places. And then if I combine that with the big hotel, so I use the Riviera, which also has gorgeous grounds and beautiful, but also happens to have a ballroom. So I can use the ballroom as a place that we can all come for keynotes. the whole crowd, and then we can use all the breakout rooms at these smaller hotels for our classes. And so this was the first time trying that. And again, it was like, think of it as a visual or a South by Southwest of style. It was like, so we were only, trying to pick places that had really cool hotels with really cool meeting spaces. But then we could all get together to say, watch Joanna Gaines and her keynote. And at the Saguaro, we had to do our keynotes out at the pool, which was fine. I mean, like, it was great, but it's not the same. You want to be able to, show slides and really have a neat backdrop. And we couldn't do that for our keynotes, but there was nowhere else big enough that we could do an inside keynote anyway. So we had these issues, and we hope that maybe we've solved them now. If that we do this multiple location, it allows us to try lots of places and then still use either a ballroom or one of those kind of warehousey spaces that's been converted for events for the big meetings. And we hope that will solve it. So thanks to South by for those ideas.
Well, on behalf of Austin, you're welcome. No, I think that's very interesting about the social shares, but I don't doubt that at all. Like, I know alt has been other places, but for me, I definitely associate it with Palm Springs now. And like, even when I see the hotel, I'm not gonna try to say that cactus name
Saguaro,
because
it's okay.
Saguaro. Yeah, because I'm gonna say it wrong. Even when I see those pictures, like, the first thing I think to myself is like, "Oh, that's the alt hotel."
Totally.
I'm sure a lot of people within our genre do. They're like, you know what I mean? I just call it that now. There's the alt hotel.
Right.
Because you just think of that rainbow thing.
Right. So yeah,
very
so it's
clever.
great. And we have a site visit next, coming up in a couple of weeks, where I'll be down there with my event organizer to try and say, okay, are we using the same hotels? Are we going to try something new? Because it was our first year doing it, so they definitely had to work out some of the kinks. Like, we had shuttles going, which I know South by doesn't even offer, but we're like, we try and make, it's all something. We try and make things really, I don't know. It's like anything else. There's that meme going around that if you get invited to do a podcast with a woman like you, there's like, here's the instructions, here's the questions, this is what we're going to talk about, here's the time, here's all these instructions. And then if you do it with a man, they're like, yeah, I'll text you that morning. Or like, you get no information. And it's a little bit like that. Like this, our conference is like, we are going to take care of you. We want to make sure there's snacks every time you're walking around. There's coffee all day long. We want to make sure there's everything's, we made maps for you, and we made a schedule, and then a second schedule. And then here's a third type of schedule for like, we just really try and go give above and beyond, because that's sort of what women do, I suppose. And anyway, so we had brought these shuttles in, and then, and the shuttle companies were really cute, because they were like, yeah, just be aware. The first year's always rough. No one know, we don't know what we need, so it's hard to determine kind of what your event will need until you've actually done the event. And it's true. And so it was rough. It got better by the end of the week, but we're like, oh, maybe we need to like do hotels that are walkable and skip the shuttles altogether. And anyway, so we're still trying to solve that, but it was really successful. It allowed us to grow it in a big way from 700 to 2,000 in 1 year, which was terrific. And
whoa.
And it means we can be scalable now. So if we wanted to say, you know what, we're going to open up 3,000 tickets. We don't have plans to do that right now, but pretend we did, or 5,000 or whatever. All we do is add another hotel with more meeting space and add more speakers. So it's good. And it allowed us to, like, besides these big keynotes, the rest of the classes were the same size they always have been at Alt Summit, not too big. So you really get to meet the speaker if you want to. You really get to connect with the attendees that are there. And because we certainly don't want it to feel like every class is 2,000 people in a room. That's just not the alt vibe at all. So at any given time at this conference, we had 9 different classes happening. And again, in some of these spaces really didn't hold more than, say, 70 people. So not huge spaces in some cases. And you really do get to connect with who you want to connect with. It's remarkable. Anyway, so
it looks dreamy.
Thanks. Well, I hope you'll come next year. And I just felt like so excited about this new format, because it really allows us to involve and invite so many more people.
Well, and as someone who loves Palm Springs, I like the idea that it's multiple places. Like, I love the Ace. I love the Parker. Like, I want to check out the the Cactus Hotel that I'm not going to try to
It's
say.
okay.
Last time I was there, I stayed at like Kelly Wersler's hotel that I don't even think is there anymore, but I
And
think that's part of the fun.
there's other cool ones that you may not even have heard of. So we're looking at those, but it is a lot of fun and it allows you to explore Palm Springs in a way that you maybe wouldn't get to in another time. And even just the Parker, for example, I mean, hotel nights there are $600 a night. And that's going to be out of reach for almost every entrepreneur. Like that's just starting out. That's just not reasonable. But then you can stay with the alt block for under, if it's like, it was around 250, 260, that's amazing. So if you, if you get a roommate or two, that really drops the price for you. So it's this opportunity, like, I don't know. I guess it felt like here's this gift. You get to go see the Parker, even if you're not staying there. You get to go on the grounds and go to these classes and go to this, the Amazon suite and the Alaska Airlines suite and the WordPress suite. Like you get to go to some of these places that you're not allowed on the grounds. I don't know if you know. If you're at the Parker, you can go into the lobby and you can go to the restaurant, and that's it. You're not allowed to walk around the grounds if you're not staying there. So
don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I've done it.
Well, so there it is. I mean, like they have,
I snuck around.
Well, they have people watching there, and you must have looked like you stay there anyway. So like, oh, she's one of us. But anyway, so was this opportunity to let people that would appreciate it too. These are, attendees that the kind of people that would appreciate it get to see the grounds, get to go into the buildings, even if they weren't staying there. And it was also this opportunity to stay there if they'd ever wanted to, at a price that they were not going to be able to beat. And so I felt like that was this gift, like, hey, I'm giving you the Parker this year, but it's really, they only have meeting space that's max 400 people. So it's not like you can, unless you're, outside without tents or something. So it's not like you can hold Alt Summit there, like for real, like as a standalone conference. It would be tiny. And so this is this way to say, oh, you get to have the Parker, but you also get to have, I get to invite everybody that wants to come. Anyway.
I love it. I mean, to me, that's a selling point. I like it. You've convinced me. I'm in. 2020.
Thank you.
I'm going to be there. You just sold me. Well, I am looking forward to seeing you speak this week at Mom 2.0 about the ins and outs of hiring a team and all the fun stuff. But before we wrap up and I let you get on with your day, I have to ask everybody the same question, which is, where do you get queso in Oakland? Or do you? Or are you going to have it here in Austin?
I'm definitely looking forward to having it here in Austin. I don't know if you know, but Laura May's blog that I think is still around.
I do know it. It was called something about queso.
Girl Con Queso was, well, now I think it's called the Queso, but her handle when she first started commenting on Design Mom, which is how I met her, was Girl Con Queso. And in fact, I thought she was like, are you Latina? Like her hair was like dark and this Girl Con Queso. I thought, anyway, for a long time, I was like, oh, I thought she was Latina. And then I met her like, oh, you're white. But anyway, oh, okay. And so we'll laugh. I thought it was like Mayez. I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, that's our joke. But
we just take our queso real serious here.
I guess. Texas. It's like, oh, I didn't understand the whole Texas queso thing. I feel like my queso experiences have all been or the best ones have all been in Texas, either Houston or Austin or even San Antonio. So I just go wherever Laura tells me to go. So wherever she's eating it these days is where I'll eat it while I'm here. But
I like it.
Yeah,
she'll know.
Yeah, she'll know. She'll for sure know. In fact, she's probably already sent it out in a newsletter, and I missed it. But
all right.
But yeah, it'll be my thing I do here. It is not as far as I know a thing in Oakland at all. So
yeah, when I talk to the people in California, they're like, yeah, our queso's not
quite
like your queso. Yeah. Yeah, I just had do you know Amy Tan from Amy Tangerine?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. I just had dinner with her on Friday night. She was in town and she was like, I really love white queso. And I was like, dude, that's a California thing. I was like searching all over to find a restaurant we could go to on Friday night for like white queso. I was like, I don't know what y'all are doing to queso out in California, but here in Texas, that's sacrilege.
I'm sure we're adding artichokes or avocados or something.
Yeah, it's probably got like kale in it and it's organic. I was like, what's white queso? I mean, we found something close. We were good.
I save my queso experiences for Texas. It's only right.
Well, good, as it should be. Well, I am looking forward to meeting you this week. I will be coming to your class. Excellent. And good luck finding delicious queso. Tell
Okay.
Laura to hook you up.
I will. Thanks so much. This has been a great interview.
Awesome. Thank you for chatting. I can hardly wait to hear Gabby talk about growing her team this week at Mom 2.0. Anyone with that many amazing accolades must know a thing or two about a thing or two. Be sure to check out Design Mom and grab a ticket to Alt 2020. I'll see you there. Thank you for listening to another episode of Creative Queso with me, your host, Jennifer Perkins. Be sure to rate and review and also subscribe in iTunes. All of those really make a difference. Thank you, as always, to my producer, Mariah Gossett, and the music provided by my dreamy husband, Chris Beck. Show notes are always at creativequeso.com. And remember, if you loved hearing about Alt and Mom 2.0, don't forget to hit the archives, where you can hear my interviews with Nicole Stevenson of Craftcation, another amazing conference for creatives, and Alt Summit sponsor, Kid Made Modern's Director of Marketing, Danielle Kurtz. I'll be back next Thursday with more fun. In the meantime, find me at Creative Queso or at Jennifer Perkins on Instagram. Bye, y'all.